Burn live, burn live, burn live, burn live, burn live, burn live. It's going down, baby. Burning through ashes, trying to make common sense.
Burn live, y'all. Burn live, y'all. We're burn through conversation, trying to ask y'all common sense. Y'all know what today it is. It is Friday. It's definitely 100% going down. You know, it's Politics Friday. We talk about things that are going on. The Cuban War, supposedly a Cuban War, the end of the Iran war, to see about gas prices. We're going to go over a lot of things, politics that's going on in the news coverage today and last week. And ladies and gentlemen, when I say there's a lot to get into, there's a lot to get into. We'll start off today with Tulsi Gabbard resigning as a director of national intelligence for the Trump administration. If people don't, she had resigned for it. People felt like she didn't do a good enough job for Trump. And yet again, it looked like she is back in the headlines. So without a further ado, ladies and gentlemen, she resigned. Sorry. Let's get to this retirement party.
Significant departure. We do now understand that Tulsi Gabbard has informed President Trump of her decision to resign from the administration. And what she is telling associates is that she is stepping down because her husband is confronting back from this very, very critical role at a very critical moment as the U.S. Remains at war with Iran, as President Trump weighs restarting the bombing campaign inside that country. This will be a significant departure. And so Tulsi Gabbard telling the president today that she does plan to resign and that she's stepping aside for this ultimately very personal reason, which is her husband's health. Now, that being said, this has been quite a tumultuous tenure, I think, Tulsi Gabbard, over the course of this second Trump administration. There had been clear points throughout the last year and a half when she did seem to diverge. Background, she herself is a veteran. She talked before she was in this job when she was a congresswoman from Hawaii about not starting foreign wars, specifically about not starting wars with Iran. And over the course of this conflict, she really did not have a very visible role whatsoever in confronting the Iran threat. She had been essentially cut out of some of those conversations. The president did seem to task her with some different roles. You'll remember she was down in Fulton County, Georgia, when the FBI was raiding a voting office there. It was sort of a strange sight to see the DNI down in Georgia when the FBI was conducting that raid. She also put out a report sort of downplaying the role of election meddling from Russia. Both of those, I think, meant to put her in the president's good graces. But despite all of that, there had been these clear tensions. And so now we're understanding that she is going to be leaving the administration. We do not yet know at this point who may replace her. This is a very, very critical job. You know, it was created in the aftermath of 9/11 to try and coordinate all of the government's intelligence stream. So at particularly a tense moment, it will be critical to get this job filled. But at least for now, Tulsi Gabbard's saying that she will no longer be the director of national intelligence.
Yeah, especially as the United States is at war in the Middle East.
Yeah. A lot of people are going to speculate that somebody probably told her to leave or something like that. There's been a lot of reports that Trump wasn't pleased or happy with her performance, and by her not being happy or him not being happy with performance, they're trying to find places for people to go that extentually will help the administration out better. And so yet again, you got her return because yet again, she is saying that her husband has a rare case of cancer. Prayers go out to her and her family for a speedy recovery.
It's notable that the director of national intelligence is departing.
I also just want to talk about sort of the policy positioning of where Tulsi Gabbard was in terms of director of national intelligence. We heard at points that debate sort of, I guess not so much debate, a difference in stated position between what we heard from the president at times, sometimes it was Steve Witkoff, in terms of the ability for Iran to get a nuclear weapons grade weapon. And then she would often say that the capability was obliterated. I wonder for you, who just follows this space so closely, what did you see the most as most significant in her dynamic as DNI here?
And I think that the primary issue was that she just didn't really deliver substance and kind of a purpose for the administration from an intelligence perspective, and that John Radcliffe at CIA did. And so the contrast between them and the ability of them to represent the intelligence in a way that, I think that Director Radcliffe is just more artful in threading the needle and then behind the scenes providing really value added, because the CIA has that value added, right? They have deeper analytic core, and then they have the operational capabilities that, of course, ODNI doesn't have. And so I think that, it's the divergence of views that were very core to who Tulsi Gabbard is and was that never really synced. And then just, the value added or lack thereof.
Wow. I'm also curious, Beth, about the most recent incident that drew criticism from both parties regarding her visit to this elections office in Georgia. She's obviously, as DNI, focused on coordinating overseas intelligence, but there she is in Fulton County at a domestic FBI search of this elections office, reportedly putting President Trump on the phone with FBI agents as well, raising concerns about political interference. The backdrop, of course, President Trump's claims about the 2020 election and there being fraud in Georgia. And then beyond that, there were these conflicting explanations about why specifically the DNI would even be there. I mean, what does that tell you about her time as DNI and the ways in which her relationship with the president evolved into her work?
Yeah, I think that, the DNI Gabbard was in search of a mission that was of value to the president. And, there was this kind of joke, very sad joke from her perspective, where her initials, DNI, stood for do not invite to all these foreign policy meetings. And you would see that she was completely absent from Mar-a-Lago during the Venezuela operation, during the Iran operation. And so she was
I believe that the reason why she was away from some of these events is because you see how nosy these news reporters are, and they wasn't going to report correctly. And then you talk about special operations for somebody who's more public figure into sharing out the good and the bad for the president and making sure that his goals be met. I don't think it was smart to put her in the way of the people's either, because yet again, y'all been pressuring her. What is Trump doing? Why is Trump doing this? Why is Trump doing that? That's very unsettling to put a person like Gavin, her up in there and talk when we have secret operative missions going. That's a big difference. People really got to look at that. But they don't want to look at that because, yet again, it don't fit the narrative.
Search of a mission that was of value, and this election fraud mission was something that where she jumped in to take up that mantle. There are, from my perspective, having been the number 3 at ODNI in my last government position, I believe that her presence was counter to her authorities. I don't think that the DNI has authority for this kind of engagement on domestic election issues, even in their potential foreign nexus. And in the case of Georgia, in all of the years, remember, this is many, many years, there has never been an accusation or an inkling of foreign activity related to that outcome. And so, it was just completely off the charts, weird. And then, just from my perspective and from many others, beyond what a director of national intelligence should be doing.
Let's go to Brian Todd. Brian, obviously this was a tumultuous tenure, and
they really going to try to paint that narrative that she wasn't fit for the position, had to resign. They're picking a bad reason to resign for, and they would go like that. Now, I also want to mention that I pay attention to these polls. Midterm election has started, and also I want to cover the what might intentionally happen to Cuba and stuff like that. There's a lot.
What's happening in Texas, where
yet again, right now, we're going to happen in why is Texas senator race different and difficult? It's important. We're going to go to Texas and get down. I'm going to go to CNN. Yeah, CNN, good news coverage, allegedly. But we're going to go to them and get into this because we need to know.
President Trump just endorsed Attorney General Ken Paxton in the hotly contested Senate runoff against Republican incumbent Senator John Cornyn. Ken Paxton now seen as the favorite to win the primary, but not the favorite among some of the Republican establishment who think this actually reduces Republicans' chances to hang on to the seat. With us now, the aforementioned chief abacus analyst, Harry Anton. All right, Harry. So look, President Trump has enormous and a really successful record of picking Republicans to win in Republican primaries. Yes. After that, it's a little bit of a different story. Why are some Republicans concerned about Attorney General Ken Paxton if he is the Republican nominee?
It's simply put, they're looking at the numbers. They are looking at the numbers. And the idea that Democrats can't win in Texas, I want to put that to rest. They could very well do it. James Tallarico could very well win in Texas. And I want to use a comparison point with 2018, because there was all this talk about Beto O'Rourke, right? Oh, could he beat Ted Cruz? He could beat Ted Cruz. The numbers at this point in that campaign, simply put, did not support that conclusion. But the numbers at this point absolutely support the conclusion that James Tallarico can win. So take a look. Texas Senate polls in May of the election year. When you matched up Beto O'Rourke versus Ted Cruz was up by 7 points. He was clearly ahead. But look at the polling average now when you max up Ken Paxton versus James Tallarico. It's actually Tallarico that's ahead by 4 points. And Johnny B, I was looking back at every single Texas Senate race that I could find. And at this point in the campaign, James Tallarico is polling better than any Democrat in at least 24 years. You have to go all the way back to 2002 to find a Democrat even polling anywhere close to where Tallarico is polling right now. Texas, Democrats have dreamt about turning it blue. This time, the numbers actually support the idea that
it sounds like to me that gerrymandering the maps. It sounds like gerrymandering the maps doesn't mean anything, and that the fact of the matter is that yet again, people want to get out and vote democratically, Republican, or independently to put somebody in office they feel is deemed worthy of the position. It can happen. I'm going to say that again. It seems to me that gerrymandering the maps doesn't mean shit. All this racism over a map, switching around, sound like it's a load of crap. Sound like if you have a legitimate reason to gerrymander the maps legally, you still can get anybody in office.
they may actually be able to do it.
I have to say, this is a difference that I have not seen before and I was not aware of. And a lot of people are making the comparison to 2018. One of the reasons is that Ken Paxton, if he's a nominee, not a super popular nominee, and people are like, oh, well, Ted Cruz as an incumbent senator, he wasn't that popular either. So what's the difference between Cruz and Ken Paxton?
Yeah, the idea that Ted Cruz was not that popular, that's a falsehood. That is simply put a falsehood. You go back. Again, just look at these differences right here. Okay, Texas GOP candidate net favorability. Ted Cruz's net favorability was actually plus 7 points in my average polls. Look what Ken Paxton is. The complete inverse of that. He's 7 points underwater. So look, again, you just look at the numbers. In 2018, Democrats had this dream of turning Texas blue. The numbers didn't support it in large part because Ted Cruz was actually decently popular, but Ken Paxton is anything but in poll after poll after poll. He is.
This is why I be saying to me, you Democrats moving to Republican states, try to change the maps. This is a prime example. This is what y'all doing. Y'all leaving California, Washington, Oregon, Massachusetts, New York, these big Democratic cities with your Democratic mind. I'm still Democratic. I just don't like where I'm at, even though you're in a Democratic state. And then you move to a Republican state and still want to vote Democrat because you don't like something. But yet again, you moved away from a Democratic. Now, the Dems probably looking at that and like, hey, our plan is working. We should have been trying to kick some of our Democratic people out and spread amongst the people so we can change seats in other states. Now, if you're looking at it from that point of view, you are correct. You actually make a point, and you look pretty good right now.
Underwater. No wonder Republican senators are running scared, especially after that Trump endorsement of Paxton yesterday.
How's the president doing in Texas?
Okay, that's the other part of this equation, right? All politics at this point funnel down from up top and then drop down to the state level. And you can just see it right here. Okay, back in May 2018, Trump's net popularity in Texas, he was at plus 4 points. He was above Wood. Again, we're looking at the inverse of that. Trump is considerably less popular in Texas, which of course matches what we're seeing nationally, which is that Donald Trump is less popular now than he was at this point in term one. You put it all together. You look at the general election polls. You look at the popularity of the potential Republican candidates that'll be running for Texas Senate. You look at Donald Trump's popularity as well, and you go, okay, Texas is absolutely in play. Does that mean that Democrats will finally win their first Senate race since 1988 in Lloyd Benson? I'm not saying that, but it is a real possibility.
Since 1988 was the last time a Democrat won Texas. Trump has a negative outlook in Texas. But this is my problem with this, because the numbers is numbers and we all need the numbers. Okay. The problem is that's not preparing us for 2028. Showing these polls and numbers, even though it's trying to motivate people to get out and vote for whoever party you want to do for the midterm. That's what this is supposed to do. Is get you ready, get you amped up. This is their way of getting you amped for the midterm to get up and vote. I don't know what's going to get you amped and ready to vote. That's not my ego right now. That's not my problem. That's not my concern. I would like to know, you know what I'm saying, what motivates people to get out and vote, just the average Joe people, because that stats right there, it's hard to find. That reality check, none of these parties really got down pat. A person did it, but I don't think a party gets it. I believe that's a big difference, and you're definitely going to see it after Trump getting out in office. Now, you do see another person has their own image that knows how to pick up the crowd where it's going. That's out in California with the mayor's race. No, with the governor's race out there going on. Yeah, you got something actually cooking. But right now, what's going on right here and showing this, trying to motivate us to vote, is it doing it? Are you going to vote? Are you getting up? Are you amped? Okay.
Or saying is 2026 is different than 2018.
It is different than every campaign that I have been around for.
Harriet, thank you very much.
Thank you, my
that.
friend.
The surprise endorsement that could have major implications.
So, my question to y'all is, if Trump endorsements stop working, is this the end of MAGA? Or we can finally put MAGA to rest? Or are we going to be concerned that we still got this MAGA going, we still got this regime going? Now, I told y'all it was for the midterms. Okay, midterms in November. Right now, you're dealing with the primaries, and then you're going to deal with the midterms that will put somebody in a seat somewhere. And in 2 more years, we got the president. So we really got to get it ready. We really got to get it cracking and cooking. Who won, when, where, and why? Who are trying to put in these seats in these states? Who is going to justify us and what we are trying to do? Ladies and gentlemen, $35 billion spent to take down a Republican who voted with what? See, these stories like this, man. $35 billion to campaign, $28 million, $100-something billion. And then the average Joe person can't even put $2,000 every 2 weeks in their pockets at a minimum job. That's the argument of the people. I don't understand why the people don't say it like that. We got all these big campaigns. I mean, you got people that can break down the numbers. You had a guy that was talking about on one campaign how the war is costing us so much money, but we could have been solving food problems, school problems. We could have solved so many different problems amongst the board across the United States of America, instead of being in this so illegitimate tactical war. So,
and look, it's just extraordinary.
When we hear these numbers, and then you look at your pockets, this is why we get the uproar. This is why we're so angry. This is why we don't like listening to the news, because, yet again, most news people are always telling us The Democrat Party is not doing nothing for us. The Republican Party is not doing nothing for us. So if y'all keep reporting so many times they're not doing it for us, I think we, the people, need to wake up and change the narrative.
35 million dollars. Okay, in a primary like this, you'd ordinarily spend zero because the guy votes with the president. It's the president. It's extraordinary. It's incredible. And everyone's here with me, Lulu. I mean, and to the extent that you bring the Secretary of Defense, who, by the way, calls himself the Secretary of War, Thomas Massie calls him Secretary of War, just to make the point that he is with the president in many ways. In the middle of a war, he goes to Kentucky to stump on the eve of the primary.
Yeah, and he didn't only stump on the eve of the primary. He first went to bestow medals. He participated in a ceremony where people re-enlisted. It was all the pomp and ceremony of the Secretary of Defense. And then he uses that as a backdrop to go and then campaign against Thomas Massie. I mean, this is unprecedented.
I was waiting on that word to come up. Something that Trump has been did before he first got into office was doing stuff that was unnormal. Okay, so I don't understand why him doing something unnormal is going to change the matter of the fact. Now, I think it's cool that your president is not forgetting about the small campaigns, people. That's a person that's going out, shaking hands, talking to the people. One thing they're gonna not say, one thing that you're not gonna even think about. Like, most of y'all is not gonna care. But I'm thinking about a guy who's already president, who's in his last term, who should be just paying attention to the stuff that he want to do, still take the time out to get on that campaign road to campaign with small people in small states and small towns. What's wrong with that? I'm not supporting them, but what's wrong with that?
You know, we keep our civilian heads of the DOD that way for a reason. They're supposed to be in their capacity as nonpartisan as they possibly can, because being the head of the military is a sacred trust. It is not supposed to be political. So the very idea that he is doing this in the middle of a war, but doing this at all, is really another norm that has been completely broken.
You know, and Bakari, you had those awards, those Purple Hearts that were awarded, but it is in the context of the fact that Trump, when it comes to his base, that's where Jeff Zeleny said, right? People are choosing between a congressman they like and a president that they like. You look at Tennessee, look at Cassidy, right? When it comes to these primary Republican on Republican violence, Trump is winning.
And that's okay. And I think many Democrats say continue this because it's apparent that
somebody needs to help me find this Republican violence that's going on in the House, where you got people just going for positions. I'm sorry, I'm lost. Will you have people voting that, I don't know. She said violence. Yo, that's what I'm tripping off of. Violence. Straight violence. Let's hear that one more time.
Right? People are choosing between a congressman they like and a president that they like. You look at Tennessee, look at Cassidy, right? When it comes to these primary Republican on Republican violence.
Republican on Republican violence. Did somebody get hurt? Look at that expression she's putting into that. Are we getting hurt, or are people going to jail and stuff? Do these Republicans need to be prosecuted? What's going on, man? I'm curious. I didn't know. Somebody let me know something.
Trump is winning.
And that's okay. And I think many Democrats say continue this because it's apparent that the Republican Party is still very much Donald Trump's party. What Republicans in Washington, D.C. understand, however, is that his numbers are underwater. His approval rating is as low as it's ever been. The economy is not where he promised it would be. The cost of eggs, the cost of gas, all of those things, inflation rising, seeing that. People were talking about America first, and we're at war on many different fronts. They're not understanding the reason why. You have slush funds, you have a lack of ethics. And the irony in this is that Thomas Massie is light years more conservative than Donald Trump. This isn't a question of whether or not there is a conservative member, a Reagan-type conservative, a George W. Bush-type conservative. This isn't that anymore. This is a conversation about someone who had a modicum of dignity and respect in Thomas Massie, somebody who had ethics and morals in Thomas Massie, and Donald Trump, who runs a operation of retribution.
So, Gretchen, when Thomas Massie tells Jeff Zeleny they're fighting against him because they're panicked in the final hours, do you see that as sort of bluster and what you would say before an election? Or do you think he says that sort of bolstered by data and a feel?
No, I think both sides are panicked. Let's be clear, Pete Hegseth, unless Kentucky polling show that suddenly he's like this important popular figure in the Republican side of things, I'm not sure why you would send him there other than Donald Trump believes that he looks telegenic. So he thinks that maybe voters will come out simply because of that. And that's what Donald Trump likes. That's the first thing. Second of all, I think Pete Hegseth is going to run for president. So I think that's the other reason that he's there. Number three, one of the most important things that's not being discussed here is that these primaries that Donald Trump has been victorious in over the last few weeks have been primary voters. These are diehard MAGA supporters. In many cases, where independents are not allowed to vote in these primaries, where you have...
How? You just said that we went after Trump-based people to get them out. MAGA. You know, if they MAGA, they coming. Like, stop playing. It's not hard to get a MAGA rally right during election time, right during voting time, to come out. Hey, let me step on now. Let me show my face. Trying to get that's okay. See, when you try to make a big deal of going against something and then say the opposite, that independent people couldn't even vote, I'm gonna need you to have an explanation. I'm gonna need you to break that down. What law was broken to where we say, hey, on the ballot, it says that you're independent. You cannot come in here and vote. I don't mean to cut her off like that, but this is what I need her to explain. Now, is she going to explain that? Is she going to explain that? We'll see.
The majority of the American public sitting somewhere in the middle. But I do believe this is the most important election that we've seen over the last couple of weeks, because Massie has been the biggest fighter against Trump. And I think that whoever wins this one, that's going to be a sign of what may be to come.
I mean, can we just $35 million?
Insane.
Yet again, did she say anything about why the independent people wasn't vote? Is anybody finna report so I can break coverage with the people? Am I finna go look it up? How did independent people in Tennessee wasn't able to vote, was able to vote, and call this lady out on her, whatever, because I don't know if it's bull crap, but yet again, I'm going to do some investigation. We got to figure that out.
Something that ordinarily would have had a zero next to it?
I mean, the amount of money dropped into these races is completely crazy. I mean, I have to tell you, if there is one thing that people tell me over and over again, regular people, is that they would like to see changed, is the amount of money that is being dropped in. And also by just dark money, people who, you know, we're seeing that AIPAC.
What is dark money? Yeah, here we go with this boogeyman versus monster. What is dark money? Now I can go to Google and ask what dark money is, and I can go to Google. I should have went to Google and asked about the independence, huh? That's what we're gonna start doing, man. We're gonna start breaking this shit down, right? We hear something that's ridiculous. If we hear it ridiculous, we just gonna do our research so we can understand better. There ain't no sense of going blind into these conversations and be like, okay, where did this happen? Where did that happen? Why did y'all not report on it?
Dropping in money, all these different interest groups coming into these races and trying to influence them. And a lot of people look at this and say, is that democracy? Is that really what we are actually barreling towards when we have all this money coming into these races like that?
AIPAC, of course, is
What type of dark horses infighting with the Republican Party are we talking about? Because when I boy up there, when you got somebody up there that can speak again, because nobody can speak against these people. So when you have somebody up here that can speak against what they are saying in a conversation, then we can see something. Yeah. We can get a little deeper into the monies and funds and campaigns and who moving what, who moving where. But yet again, that table was so one-sided. Let's broaden the table out. All right, let's broaden the table out. Let's get some more people up here on this panel and see what we got. You know what I mean?
Paying for this are not going to know who this is going to. This is so bad. It is so bad. It's so bad prima facie. It's just bad on its face. But then when you put it in context, in the fact that Americans can't afford gas, Americans can't afford groceries, farmers are going bankrupt all over this country. We are in the middle of a war that's now cost $50 billion. He wants $1.5 billion for a ballroom. He wants hundreds of millions of dollars for an arch. He wants $15 million to paint the reflecting pool. And then you put on top of that now a $1.7 billion slush fund to pay his supporters and the people who feel victimized. I mean, I'm so old. I remember when most Republicans used to balk and be shocked and outraged by the idea of reparations to people who suffered slavery. But we're going to be giving money to January 6th insurrectionists. That part's okay. Yeah, it's disgusting.
Scott, is this reparations?
Look, I think there's a lot about it we don't know. I don't know who's on the committee. I don't know exactly who's going to be applying for it.
The people that Trump approves.
Well, they say anybody can apply for it, and I don't think.
Okay, I'll apply for it. You think I'll get it?
Have you ever been unfairly targeted by the Department of Justice?
I have been unfairly targeted by this administration. Yeah.
Have you been unfairly prosecuted by the Department of Justice?
Are those the people that are going to be in this?
So the answer is no, you haven't. So the issue is, the question is, has anyone?
Woo! Scott Jennings. Woo! Don't set yourself up like that. You set yourself up. She set herself up. Boy, that put tears in my eyes. Man, I'm gonna have to clip that myself. Ooh. My God. Anybody can sign up for it if you fall under them two things that Scott Jennings just said. Okay. Let's not play games. Let's be serious. That was funny. I'm not gonna lie to you. But still, no.
In the history of the United States ever been unfairly targeted by the Department of Justice? Of course they have. And there ought to be, just at a top line, a way for people to seek recourse if they have been unfairly targeted. That having been said, this all started by the fact that Donald Trump had his tax returns unfairly and illegally leaked by the IRS. That's where all this started. And he was initially seeking damages for that, which he has given up. He'll receive no money, as I understand it. And now it has morphed into this idea that there have been people that have been unfairly targeted. All of this makes me a little uncomfortable because it's a lot of money and it didn't go through the U.S. Congress. That's number one. Number two, I don't want to see a president necessarily handpicking people to get payments where he could be accused of just picking people out who are political allies. But do I want a world where if you've been unfairly targeted by the federal government and it was truly unfair and you truly had something done to you that should not have been done, do I think people should be able to seek recourse for that? Absolutely, I do, because I think it probably happens, and not on a partisan basis, but it probably happens all the time. And I think people ought to be able to seek some sort of damages if they've been unfairly targeted by the department or by the federal
like
government.
James Comey or just
Right. I mean,
James?
I guess the question is, you've got this. The overarching thing that has people really riled is the January 6th rioters, some of whom pled guilty. I was in one of the trials for the Proud Boys and for the Oath Keepers, and I watched the whole thing, and I watched it play out, and it played out as any justice, any trial would play out. And here they're pardoned, and they could seek money should they be able to.
My personal view is anybody who committed documented violence against the government or against police officers, they've not been unfairly treated. If they ended up being convicted of a crime because of violence they committed, I got no real sympathy for them. Now, if there were people who were on the periphery that were swept up, over prosecuted, whatever, and they have a way to seek a recourse here, I have less of a problem with that. But I draw the line at violence. If you've committed political violence, if you attack the government building, if you attack police officers, I got real no sympathy.
Scott, you don't have a problem with Todd Blanche handpicking 5 people who Trump can fire at any moment and giving reparations that are then not disclosed to the American people who are paying for this slush fund?
Why do you know it's not going to be disclosed?
Because because it says so.
Is it to be public in whole or in part?
I mean, kind of like, like I have an issue with the.
So wait, it is going to be public?
Public in whole or in part.
So this is
there
not
are parts that
there are parts that they could redact, is what you say, not disclose.
You mean
but
like the
it's not
Epstein files?
private from the jump.
I think that's a great example.
Look, I'll just
I have an issue. I have an issue with the congressional slush fund that has paid out.
I agree with you. That's all done in
sexual
secret.
claims.
But yet again, you got a problem with thinking that Trump is going to go up here and fire somebody in a department. You know what I'm saying? He can have a problem. He can put his emphasis and put his input. Bro, y'all only got 2 years to deal with this. It was so many people. Bro, you're not going to get through that. Now, is he going to have control over it after the fact when he get out of office? Now, that would have been a question, at all question. You know what I'm saying? But yet again, we're talking about anybody in the United States of America and all 50 states that feel like the government did something to them that was aggressional and that they didn't deserve it, they should get some money for it.
With our taxpayer
It's all
funds,
done
and
in
we
secret.
don't know
I
it,
agree.
right? And that should be transparent. It is shameful that it's not. It is ridiculous that we are even considering this in any way a right thing to do.
Look, I think transparency is important, and I'll
Yes,
but I
sure,
look, I do think partisanship aside, politics aside, people are often will be treated unfairly by the federal government and the Department of Justice. There were certainly people during the Biden years, pro-lifers sitting, praying quietly on sidewalks who were treated unfairly. So look, I don't think we could say the federal government and the Department of Justice is perfect. It is not perfect. And if somebody did have something happen to them that's unfair, are you saying they shouldn't be able to petition their government for some sort of recourse here? Because I do believe that.
But
Now,
they
whether the
can.
fund is the right thing,
They
I
can't
don't know.
at a state level, at a federal level, people who have been unjustly targeted. I mean, we see it all the time with people who've spent, I don't know, decades in prison and it turns out that they are innocent.
It happens.
And then all of a sudden they get out. They're proven innocent and they are given reparations.
But this fund will not be for those people.
Cornel West, how do you see this? I mean,
No, this just
could the King family come back after what happened to Dr. Martin Luther King being jailed? I mean, how do you see this playing out?
Well, first, I just want to salute you, Sister Sarah. First time I get a chance to meet you,
First time I met
high-quality
you in
journalists, just like you and Abby. It's high quality. It's always a blessing. But I just want to hear my dear brother Scott try to rationalize this in some way. And I see you're getting checkmated here because there's just no grounds for justification of this unless you open the gates and you got trillions of dollars for ex-slaves and ex-Jim Crow people. You got 6,000 of the Innocence Project just at Harvard Law School of people who've been incarcerated. And you got 2.2 of mass incarceration. I've been blessed to teach in prison for 49 years. Now, tomorrow is Malcolm X's birthday. He's 101. What is it about Malcolm? Well, what we're talking about is this is just the peak of an iceberg. When you're living in an empire that is unraveling because the hatred and the greed is overwhelming. And so there's no sincerity, there's no integrity, there's no character. So people will justify anything in the name of power and might as opposed to integrity and what is right. That's a spiritual crisis. That's a moral crisis. Malcolm X was right about that. I was glad to see his face on that magnificent banner down there in Alabama when they marched in Selma and Montgomery. Martin was there, Fannie Lou Hamer was there, but it's not a question of skin pigmentation. It's a question of character, integrity, and the attempt to do what is right. There's no integrity in justifying $1.8 billion of people who engaged in criminal activity actually killed some policemen, and they get compensated, they get reparations.
See, that's where y'all try to paint the picture for the people and make it seem so very disgusting to where that's not what we're saying. He's saying people that got swept up, that did absolutely nothing, no crimes, people that were invited and got locked up, just as well as people that committed a crime. Those people can look for reparations. People that did the Biden administration, and if they had a problem, they might as well can go sign up to. And if they can't sign up to, then yeah, I got a problem. If everybody can't sign up to see if they can get something, then nobody can sign up. How about that? And that's what I'm going to say to it. That's literally what I'm going to say to it. If all them people, if anybody can't sign up, nobody should sign up. So therefore, you're proving these people right, that you're only giving people to only Trump people, and that looks very disgusting. That's just how it looks. And you would think that administration wouldn't want to do that, especially at a time like this, where hell, everybody's pointing a finger at you, trying to say that you do bad. So maybe, yeah, they need to go sit their asses down, go relook and evaluate the situation and come back and reconstruct it. And maybe put everybody else in it so it looks a little bit better.
And black folk, indigenous folk, other folk, unfair, even white brothers and sisters who have gone to jail innocent, who deserve some kind of accountability. There's no way you can justify this. But this is just one peak of an iceberg. What we're seeing is spiritual sickness, moral decrepitude, and political corruption on steroids. But the good news is you still got folk in the country who are trying to exemplify some integrity and character and courage.
Peter, is there, and to you also, Sabrina, is there a way to fight?
Okay. So if that's true and we don't like what he's doing, we definitely need to sit him on down. Hey, look here, sit him down. That does need to be looked at. All this money all over America that's been running, people campaigning and donating money here and stuff, that it always seem to be criminals and stuff like that, needs to definitely be redefined and put a stop to. I'm definitely 100% for it. I know people are probably shocked from me saying that, like, oh, you're not support. No, I'm not supporting this. So, without further ado, y'all, I do want to definitely get into this Cuba thing. Yo.
Tonight, another Cuban spy who infiltrated the Brothers to the Rescue group spoke out on Cuban state TV following the indictment of Raul Castro.
Ellos están soñando con un Maduro 2.0.
That was Rene Gonzalez, who said the U.S. is, quote, dreaming of a Maduro 2.0. Gonzalez was joined by Gerardo Hernandez, the leader of the infamous WASP network, which spied on Cuban exile groups here in South Florida. Cuban state TV announced the regime is holding a protest against the indictment tomorrow morning in front of the U.S. Embassy in Havana. New at 11, the sister of a top Cuban official has been arrested in Miami. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that
You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
That's what's up.
How's everything?
Taken into custody
All
by
right.
ICE. She is the sister.
That's awesome, man.
Everything. That's what's up. You know, it's Friday, Politic Day.
Politic Day. You know, I remember I did post that video in the chat. Remember?
Yeah.
About the oh, you know, I don't gotta say it. So what do you so about that topic, right? Would you mind? You want to talk about it a little bit, or is that okay?
Go ahead, bring it up.
Okay. Hold on, I gotta sneeze. I got an itch in my nose.
That's okay.
Oh, Jesus. All right. So the video, what was it about? The guy. Hold on, I'm trying not to sneeze. Oh, Lord Jesus, have your way in his nose, please. All right. So guy had the video. He talked about how, you know, working 3+ jobs to make ends meet is okay, especially when you have a family. The other guy was saying, well, it's not good because you got to spend time with that family. It's not healthy. The other guy said, well, you could start a business and, you know, so, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that like along the right lines?
I do believe you're talking about this video.
Yes, go ahead. I think so. I'm not 100% sure, but go ahead.
I prefer Abby ask the questions, but sure, you can ask the questions.
I mean,
It's okay. We can talk to each other
I
here.
mean, do you think that it's insane to say that Starbucks should raise their wages for their workers? Is that insane to say as a concept?
I think that I believe in free markets, and if a private company sets their wages what they are, then that's what they are. And if you don't like the wage,
You support the minimum wage?
if you don't like the wage, don't go work there.
You support
I've
minimum
applied for
wage?
hundreds of jobs where they didn't meet my minimum I wanted to make, and I didn't go work there.
We understand that when Trump was running for president, he said that he was going to raise the wages for all these workers all across America. The real wage growth is 80% less than what it was. So that's the real facts. So if you make a campaign promise that you're going to raise wages for workers all across this country and you do not deliver on that, then who does that fall on?
Well, I don't think the president's point was he was going to go tell private enterprise that you have to pay people.
He said he was
more.
going to create the economic conditions to do so. Has he done
but
that?
That doesn't mean that he was going to go invade businesses, boardrooms, and say you have to pay your
Did he
employees
create
more.
the economic conditions to go and do
We
that?
can, you,
telling
can, you can
businesses
spin this
who to
all
have
the
on
way you
air.
want. The president of the United States is not going to, he didn't make a promise to go and invade boardrooms and tell companies, private companies, how much they should pay their think mothers like mine and others at this table do what they have to do to go and provide for their families. And my father also, for the record, worked several jobs as well. But my point that I'm making is simply this. I would not complain that my CEO is making all this money. If I had an issue with that, I would go start something. I would go create something. I would go create means for me to go and make more money. That's what I wanted to do. We live in a country where that is available. We live in a country where people
We actually don't live in the country where that's available.
Here's the idea that we should just continue business as normal. It's just simply not working. We know that we had 1.1 million layoffs just last year alone. That's the highest number since when Trump was last president in 2020. And then even before that, the biggest number since the Great Recession. So at the reality that we stand today, I think instead of spending $400 million on a Qatari plane and all these other things that Trump is spending money on, let's put money towards universal childcare so that someone like your mom does not have to go and work 2 and 3 jobs to go and provide for her children.
Well, my mom's a hardworking woman. She would work
to have to do that
anyway.
Well, she shouldn't have to do that.
We come from a long line of
well, you know what? Maybe you think that should be something that should be done. I don't think that it should. I think our tax dollars should be spent better, and Republicans are not spending it in the way that it needs. Can I ask you a question?
You want to put more emphasis on that with break it down before I say my piece? Or you just want to hear my piece?
Statement's clear, I think. 2020, I do want to say he did bring up 2020 and it being the biggest layoff since Trump was in office. I get that, but 2020 also COVID hit, so you can't really bring up 2020. But if you want to compare now to the Great Depression or whatever, then you can. But as far as using 2020, I don't think that's a good enough statistic to use. And I just want to say that. But as far as everything else that he's saying, I totally agree. I think we should have universal health care, especially if they want people to go to work. There should be more things to support families. And if not universal health care, then, make it a better wage, for people to be able to live off of. So they can still have time to spend with their families, make doctor's appointments, do whatever they need to do to be there for the children and their families. So, and I'll say that,
All right. To get wages up in your state and city, you have to be able to create businesses and opportunities for people to do what they want to do. First and foremost, if you're not a state that can bring businesses in, if you're not a mayor or a governor that can produce jobs, you're going to have a failing situation. Okay? Starting off there. Secondly, yes, you can go start up a business. So many businesses. I mean, I'm looking in right now every day in small businesses and stuff on the side that you can do if, you need extra means of money if you don't want to go get 3 to 4 jobs. I get it. Also, yes, if you have a certain qualification and you're working at a job that's not meeting the means of your living habit, yes, I suggest you go find another job and quit that one job and, and get you a better paying job. That is possible here in America. With the layoffs, with majority of the layoffs have been federal, unless there have been jobs layoffs in places that were high crime. So first of all, you got to get your crime down so it wouldn't be as much layoffs. Yeah, people don't look at the ins and outs. They just look at the numbers and point the finger at the bad guys instead of looking at the situation. Why are there layoffs? Why is these jobs leaving? It's high crime around there. People are thieving. People don't feel safe. People are calling off because they don't feel safe to come to work. So yet again, you got to make the environment safe. You got to create jobs. You got to be able to bring businesses, big businesses in that's going to pay those high taxes. Because if you don't get big business in to pay them high taxes, guess who's going to pay those taxes that people are complaining about paying? The little people. Because big businesses, rich people can move to other states to where there ain't no taxes, like Nevada, Florida, Texas, where we don't go through those problems. I know people are going to look at that and be like, that was harsh, but those are true. Those are things that we got to start looking at. If your mayor is not creating jobs in your city, he got to go. If your governor is not creating businesses, corporations want to come, new developing land for the opportunists, you know what I'm saying, making it safe, pollutionary free, they got to go. We can't just look at somebody and say, okay, man, we're going to give them a chance. In 4 years, when you have an opportunity to get rid of them, don't care, because yet again, the problem really doesn't affect you, but yet again, you're hearing all these reports. I don't know what else to tell somebody. You know what I'm saying? And luckily, people are starting to wake up to that. But what that guy is saying is Trump did not campaign on going into local businesses and say, hey, I need you to make a wage that's good. Now, if I can get big businesses tax cuts, yes, it's supposed to trickle down to the little people, more hours. But yet again, I have problems and I have people stopping me. You got to understand, a president don't have a smooth slate to run how they want to run in a campaign. If that was the case, everybody get done what they want to do during their administration. But you know, life happens, things happen. You got to be able to just be able to move. And creating businesses is what's going to create generational wealth anyway. Stocks and bonds is going to create money anyway. So, you know, it's time to get into that. It's time to wake up to 2026 and stuff that's in front of us and available, and saying that we can't sit on our ass and work 4 or 5 jobs. And if you want to work 4 or 5 jobs just because you think it's necessary, that's a you thing. Not a government thing, not nobody else thing, not a Trump thing. That's a you thing. Anything you guys ever say, Mr. Johnny, sir?
Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of going into businesses and telling them that they have to pay a higher wage. I mean, but if that's what comes with raising the minimum wage, so that way housing and food can be affordable, while some people who are less qualified can work jobs and still be able to survive in America, yes, raise the minimum wage for those people. They need it.
But
And
most jobs are above the minimum wage average.
yeah, and that's why we need to we need to raise it in the U.S. We need to raise the minimum wage so that way you can catch up with with the rate of living. Because right now, the average rent in America, the average they said is around like $3,000 a month, and that's just going off average. That's not going off of each particular state in each area. That's just average. And then some people want you to make 3 times that per month.
Well, they
So
took their ruling out. Can't no landlords do that no more. That's against the law. They can't ask you for 3 times the rent no more. If that, you need to report the man and get some justification. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of old school stuff that the people are still looking at that don't abide by today that we need to stop. You know what I'm saying? No, it's not happening.
I mean, it's either you raise the wage, or you set regulations on housing and rental properties and how much they can, you know, charge people to live there, whatever the case may be. Like, do something, set something. So, like,
You
for
can't do that
people,
because that's
well,
stopping
that's the issue,
capitalism.
and that's the
You're
issue.
you're trying to stop capitalism where you're trying to tell people how to run their own businesses. I don't think you want somebody. See what people, and I don't mean to say it like this, but I guess I'm gonna have to say it. People like you need to start a business. Truly need to start a business. Win or lose, fail or whatever. You need to start a business. And then ask yourself what government you want to come in here and tell you what to do when it's yours and you started from the bottom. Go ahead.
I will want one that's for the people to tell me how to run it.
Then
Rather that be
it's not your business then.
it don't have all that control, and that's a problem. Like, we want so much control that we forget that there are people that's out there that are trying to feed their families. So, you know what I mean? Like, at what point are we gonna stop allowing greed to fuel the situation and not what's in the best interest of others?
Because without that greed, you won't get up off your ass and start your own shit. You so worried about something that's not there. Yet again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna go back to what I always say: the boogeyman versus monster. You're pointing a finger at the boogeyman when the monster is yourself because you're not getting your ass up and starting your own shit and getting out of these so-called corporations' way. Then you are the corporation. You set your own boundary, you set your own rules, and you set your own minimum wage to pay your employees. That's what the other guy was trying to explain to the guy. Like, look at here. If you're so mad at working 3 jobs, it's something at them 3 jobs you was good at. Take that one thing that you're good at, them 3 jobs, apply it to everyday living, put it on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and sell it to the max. There's nothing wrong with that. You got to be able to look at a situation and be like, yo, this is what I want. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm tired of. But yet again, blaming a president who does just as much as job cuts as any other president, what is we saying? That stuff right there is like, okay, he got rid of jobs. Joe Biden got rid of jobs. Obama got rid of jobs. Bush got rid of jobs. Kennedy got rid of jobs. Like, okay. But yet again, how many people created jobs? Which state has the best creative of small jobs? When you move there, that's what's being. When you're stuck in a state that's not viable for you, it's okay. I understand it's scary, but it's time to get up and go. I don't care about your roots. I don't care about, my childhood or I got cousins. I don't care about none of that. Because yet again, it's not helping you, yourself, the person out. I know these are harsh things to say, but you know what I'm saying? I gotta be like this because yet again, it's a lot easier to do these things today than it was back in the day. You can go start 2 businesses right now within 20 minutes compared to how you can do it before the internet was around. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I appreciate everybody stopping through. Know your laws, know your politicals, get out here and vote. It's a good thing to do. And with that, I got to say, have a good day. We out.
This motherfucker is locked.
I'm in love, baby.